Atomos has just released some new creative features for the Ninja 5 and Ninja 5 Plus. And in today's video, I want to show you how to use them and what benefits they can provide. Let's take a look. The Atomos Ninja 5 has been out since 2018, but Atomos has been consistently adding new features to it over that time. This includes things such as being able to change the fan speed to ensure the recorder doesn't get too loud on set, ProRes RAW support for multiple cameras including Sony, Nikon and Fujifilm, and new capture formats such as H.265, which is a paid upgrade, but totally optional and great if it helps your workflow. And now with the Ninja 5 Plus, it's even better, with the ability to record up to 8K or 4K 120 frames per second. Honestly, while it's an expensive 5-inch monitor comparatively, the value I've got from it over the last 3 years has been immense, and I love the fact it just keeps getting better. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts about the monitor itself, you can watch my original review up here. But before we dive in, you'll need to update the monitor first. If you haven't already, you'll need to register your device through Atomos, and then you'll be able to download the required files. To update the firmware, you'll first place the update file onto the SSD and then boot up the monitor. It should recognize the update and start the install process. Just make sure to have a fully charged battery, or even better, use the battery eliminator to ensure it doesn't turn off midway through the process and potentially brick your device. Then you'll need to activate the feature online, which will produce a token file, which you can also place onto your SSD. Once you boot up the monitor again, it should recognize this token file and allow you to use the new creative features. So once you've done all that, let's dive in. I mean, right after you hit the subscribe button, of course. That did not feel natural. Starting with feature number 1, you now have the option for custom frame guides. Frame guides are really handy when shooting for multiple platforms, which is increasingly common these days. The same shot might need to be on Instagram stories, YouTube, and as a Facebook post too. And of course, they all have multiple aspect ratios. Now, prior to this update, you already had quite a few different common frame guides available, but now you can literally type whatever you want into the monitor, and it will show you that as a center reference, dimming out the other sides of the image. This means if you're working in some unusual aspect ratio, with this new feature you can dial in exactly what you need and not just use an approximated frame guide. And if you choose to use things like a grid overlay or safe areas, they'll also adapt to that custom frame guide too. This seems like it should be fairly self-obvious, but I'm glad the Ninja 5 behaves in this way. But what's even better in my opinion is that all the options for frame guides have now been relegated into this extended options menu here. Previously, you'd have to cycle through them by pressing multiple times on the same button, and for some reason, I'd always end up going past the one I wanted, and I'd have to go through another cycle, which just got annoying. Whereas now you can literally just select one you want to use, and the button along the bottom becomes only for that particular frame guide going forward. And while I originally thought this might make things slower when I wanted to cycle through multiple options, it's just better having them all laid out in this new format, because you can just tap on the ones you need. Often for social content, we're not caring as much about a cinematic 2.35:1 aspect ratio. Now, while I do like this new update, I still wish this could go a little bit further in the future, with Atomos allowing us to reposition frame guides so they're not always in the center. Also, I'd love to see a feature which you could simply show multiple frame guides as different colored lines, so you could see multiple aspect ratios at once. However, these are more nice to haves, and when shooting for multiple platforms in my experience, often frame for my widest and tightest frame, and the rest should just fall into place. For feature number 2, you now have the option to grab whatever frame is on screen. Now, originally I thought this would just be for playback, but you could even capture a frame when monitoring too. These files are stored on the SSD, and I love the fact it's super easy and simple. Just hit the button. This feature is useful for a variety of reasons, including pulling quick references or a YouTube thumbnail still, for example. But the biggest answer I wanted to know was whether it would also capture the LUT I was using too, and thankfully the answer is yes. This means if you're not having to grade those references before sending them off, or if you really want a clean log image, you can just disable all those monitoring options first and then take the still. However, as a minor downside I've found in my testing is that even with a 4K input, the image generated is still 1080p. Also, you can't easily access those references just to browse in any other mode except the next one I'm about to get into, which is onion skin overlays. Onion skinning is a really handy process which allows you to see a faded image of a reference frame over the top of what you're capturing. This is useful for a variety of reasons, often used in stop motion to judge how much a frame has changed from one to the next, or in visual effects where you need to line up similar shots, or to ensure things don't cross a line. Now, while this feature did feel a little bit unusual to use initially, it works really well. If you don't have a reference frame already loaded onto your SSD, you can take a frame grab from whatever you're monitoring or a previous capture you have, and then select the onion skin button. If it's your first time using it, it'll open an extended options menu and ask what reference frame you want to use. You can either select it from the folder structure, or go for your last used or last frame grab. The last used is actually really handy because this feature resets not only every time you turn on and off the monitor, but even when you go back and forth between playback and recording. Once active, it'll basically go to a whole new screen independent of all the other monitoring features. From here, it'll allow you to adjust the transparency intensity from one of 3 options, and also the portion of the frame it covers. By default, it will take up the entire frame, but you can also set it to either the left or right half. It's important to realize you can't actually record with onion skinning turned on, and when you hit this return button, you'll go back to the main monitoring screen with all of your waveforms and frame guides. I had trouble using this initially because the button to go back is white and I was viewing it on a bright frame, so I couldn't see it. Also, once you've set the frame you want to use, the button will just take you back and forth between that one frame. If you want to change it, you'll need to go into the extended menu and select onion skin to get back to the frame selection mode. The last note for this feature is the reference needs to be an image, so you can't use videos or select a frame from a video if you haven't already done so. It's not a negative because viewing a faded video over the top of your monitoring would be super disorientating, but it's just important to mention. So those are the new creative features on the Atomos Ninja 5 and Ninja 5 Plus. To be honest, I was a little surprised to hear it was only for these monitors. I definitely get the Shinobi because it doesn't have the option to record, but the Shogun is basically a 7-inch version of this monitor, and for those owners, I hope they'll receive the same feature set very soon. But otherwise, what are you most excited about with this new feature drop? And what else should Atomos add next? Leave your comments below and I'll do my best to reply to each one. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more and I'll see you all very soon.